everybody, it's Alexa, and I want to share how we paid off $14,000 worth of credit cards in about 9 or 10 months, and the incredible feeling that it is to no longer have that revolving debt. So watch and learn. So you've probably heard of Dave Ramsey's baby steps, and one of the first ones is to pay off your bad debt. Now, Dave Ramsey is really against all kinds of debt. I don't totally agree with him on all that. There's kinds of debt that are good, like maybe a mortgage. There's deductible interest on it from your taxes, and you're buying an asset. Credit card debt and car loan debt, anything that is just right away, you're losing money on it and you're paying additional interest on it is just a bad deal. Over the years, however, when times have been hard for us and money has been tight, we sort of just got in the habit of always having credit cards as our emergency fund. So after I finished with the KonMari method decluttering, and it had to kind of tie back into that, I was kind of like done with that, and I had sort of become this more organized person by virtue of having done the KonMari method. And so I began to sort of realize that it wasn't that hard to be organized, especially once a lot of the clutter was gone and a lot of the paper clutter was gone. And I had resisted using Mint or Personal Capital or any of that stuff to track my finances, but I finally did it. And I'm really glad that I did. And the thing is, once I lined up all those credit cards, and I'm going to look at my screenshot now so that I can talk about this intelligently. I looked at my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 credit cards. One of them we were using for some medical and dental payments, or some store credit cards, bank credit cards, and I have blocked out the names of the credit cards for my own security, but you'll see the limits aren't that high. But look at those interest rates. I mean, they're horrible. And so we didn't have good credit. That's why we didn't have good interest rates. And we were just basically carrying a lot of these balances. And I also was trying to get a better credit score because both of us for a while there had terrible credit scores, even though we've never, had bankruptcies or anything like that. But just, over the process of not making very much money and trying to swing things on credit cards, that kind of stuff can happen where you just start to get worse and worse credit. And so the trick that I'm going to tell you about, you've heard Dave Ramsey perhaps talk about the Snowball Method or the avalanche method. But the first baby step that Dave Ramsey says is save up $1,000 as an emergency fund. Now, I thought that doesn't make that much sense. Why worry about that? Let me just pay down this emergency. So I realized why that does make sense. And actually for 2 reasons. Okay, so the first reason is why he said, you need that emergency fund, because what would happen was when I made this my focus to begin paying off these debts, the way I make money as a musician and a writer, I don't have a predictable income. And so I will get a big chunk of change, and then, it's feast or famine. That's my life has been most of my life. Feast or famine, okay? So the feast is good. And so when the feast would come in, I would go, I'm going to throw a big chunk of change at this credit card. But then the famine would come a month later, 2 months, 3 months later, and here I am taking back out $500, $600, $1,000, and now it's back up. And I don't feel like I know how to pay it. So that's when I started to realize, after trying this for a few months, I realized, I do need to have that $1,000 saved up. So I gradually saved up the $1,000. I don't know how long it took me, a month, 2 months. I used Digit to do it. Digit is now charging, but actually Digit also helped me kind of rewire my brain. And then I just went along with the Snowball Method. I kind of went with the smallest balances first. I wanted my husband to renegotiate some of these interest rates, but being a very macho man, he saw that as a form of capitulation, so he couldn't do it. Regardless, I was like, okay, screw it. We'll just pay them and pay them off and be done with them. And I didn't want to close them because closing the cards can also, that's a mistake I made a couple of years ago also, which I've been paying for ever since, is that I had a card which I closed. And as a result, that messed up my credit as well. I should have just left it there and not used it. But closing that, I had it for a long time, so I lost that history, and it was a good card. I had a good relationship with the lender. So I knew this time around Don't close the cards, just don't use them. Don't be tempted to use them. I had a two-pronged approach. So first, save the $1,000. I figured that out a few months in. Why is the saving $1,000 also important? Because the most important time to save is when you're broke. And this is also switch in thinking. I'm only now at this advanced stage of my life figuring this out, okay? So when you are broke, that's when it's important to save. And it seems impossible. Trust me, I know how impossible it seems. But that's why Digit is really cool, because you steal $1 from yourself, $5, 50 cents. You steal these tiny amounts from yourself on almost a daily basis. And before you know it, you've saved up $200, $300, $500. What I think is really cool about Digit is it supposedly looks at your balances and tries to figure out what's an imperceptible amount it can take from you that won't mess you up or cause you to overdraft or anything. But the cool thing about it is that I began to just feel that way on my own. I realized, wow, I already knew this logically, pay yourself first. And when I had a job years ago, I did that. I saved and did all the normal things where you put things into savings accounts and retirement accounts and all that. But I hadn't done it for years. I had not paid myself first for years. So I began to start to have that mentality. Save a little bit here, save a little bit there. So that's the second reason why saving that $1,000 emergency fund is really, really valuable, because it's a way of paying yourself first even when you're broke. Okay, so then I got back to the paying off the credit cards. Like I said, you can do Avalanche, you can do Snowball. Snowball means you start with the smallest balance first and get the snowball rolling. Avalanche means start with the largest balance, the worst interest rate first, and go that way. Mathematically, Avalanche makes more sense. Emotionally, Snowball makes more sense. Kind of did a combination of the both. And like I said, it's amazing, as always with life. You do something like this and now I can't remember how hard it was. And I'm looking at this spreadsheet and going, that was really hard. And here it is, just done. It's done. But it took a long time. So give yourself some time. Give yourself a year. Give yourself, it might take more than a year. Me being the kind of person I am, I'm not like super precise. I get a goal and then I work towards that goal. I tend not to be super precise about the steps to get to that goal. I'm not that much of a planner. I'm more of an inspirational, like I need to inspire myself to do it, get motivated. But do whatever you need to do. If you need to break it down and see how bad that interest rate is. But one thing I started to do also is I enlisted my husband in the effort, and I was showing him the progress that we were making. Now, he's very punctual. He's very good about that, but he wasn't good about saving. He wasn't good about the non-impulse spending. And when I would say to him, dude, making these minimum payments every month is adding up to hundreds of dollars. When these things are gone, that's going to be hundreds of dollars of cash flow back to us that we don't have to send to these usurious cards that are charging us 28% interest. He had a loan that was 33% interest, and we get papers in the mail that are like 200% interest, right? I guess there's people who don't understand the math of that, but that means you're going to give them back twice what they gave you. But the number one brain hack, I fell in love with the number 0. 0 balance. And what happens now is the switch in my brain that has happened is when I see a balance on any credit card, it makes me anxious and I want to pay it. And another thing that I did, frequent payments. So my brother had told me about this idea. Don't just pay once a month, pay 3 times a month, pay once a week, pay every couple days. So I would do that too. I would be like, let me just put $20 towards it. Okay, let me put $50 towards it. Sometimes $10. Sometimes I would want a round number. I'd be like, let me get the cents out of there. Make it an even number, make it end in a 0, whatever. Whatever tricks you can do to get that balance down and make it uncomfortable for yourself to see that freaking card just gaining interest every month. And for what? For food, for coffees, for crappy clothing that you're not even wearing anymore, whatever it is. You need to just stop paying that interest. And so now I'm in love with seeing these zeros, and it took a long time to get to these zeros lined up. But when I look at this spreadsheet and I look at these beautiful zeros here, 0 balance, 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 and 0 balance. We closed one card because it had an annual fee. eliminate any card with an annual fee. That's ridiculous. So there you have it. Make yourself your $1,000 emergency fund because you need that so that you don't use the credit card as an emergency fund. And you need it because you need to start paying yourself first, whether or not you're broke. Second, use a aggregator like Mint or Personal Capital to see all the credit cards and see what you owe. Oh, and I have to say, finally, this doesn't represent the total amount due because I also refinanced part of the debt to a Prosper loan, which was also an atrocious interest rate, but it was better than the other atrocious interest rate that we had. So, any minor improvement is good. So if you're at 30, I think he had a debt that was at 33%, which is horrible. So I think I got it down to 23%. Still not good. We had bad credit at the time. So, what are we going to do? But that's still a 10% improvement in the interest rate. And so we refinanced some of that, and then the rest of it we just went paying down bit by bit by bit. And now I can sort of see a future where we don't have any major debts. I can even see how pleasant it might be to not have a mortgage. Wow, that's pretty cool. And it comes back to minimalism in your bills. This concept of having 40 different bills, that's horrible. I want to get it simplified. Don't have this money just leaking out of your budget everywhere. Make it simple and pay yourself first. Now, pay yourself first in multiple ways if you want. That's cool. But paying a bunch of other people and you don't even know where it's going and what for, not cool. So I hope this motivates you. I really didn't think we were the kind of people who could do this, but we did it. We paid off $14,000 in credit card debt, and it feels amazing. And we've kept the debt off. And if we can do it, you can do it too, bit by bit. Courage.